in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to Gallop Solutions webinar today on testing banking and financial applications, challenges, trends and best practices. Let me take this opportunity to introduce Gallop. Founded in 2003, Gallop Solutions is North America's largest independent software testing services company. We are based in Philadelphia and California. We have over 2,000 plus consultants who are working globally and over 600 plus who are located in the United States. Gallop is a 100% subsidiary of Signity Technologies. And so coming to today's webinar, in changing times of technological and socio-economic behaviors, software testing is an essential part of the production deployment cycle. Software testing has reached a stage where it benefits the customer directly and in many ways. Banking and financial services industry is one of the most advanced of all the sectors which has been adapting to the changes as and when they happen in this ID world. And thus, the webinar today on testing banking and financial applications. For today's webinar, we have our speaker, who is Mr. Sachin Srivastava. Sachin has over 12 plus years of experience in testing applications in banking and financial services space. And he has been leading and training various testing teams on banking, trading, and other related domains in this sector. With rich experience of domain and technology, he understands typical challenges which are faced in handling these kind of projects, and he accordingly recommends practical and feasible best-in-class solutions. He also initiated the concept of having a domain center of excellence within Gallop in the banking and financial services space, and he managed to scale it to a 300 plus member group from a handful of people. He significantly contributes to the testing community by being active in diverse forums, and he is a speaker at multiple conferences, webinars, and he is also an avid blogger. So let me pass it over to Sachin to get started with the webinar. Sachin, over to you.
Thank you, Shubhendu, and welcome everybody taking out time. Thanks for taking out time to attend this webinar, which is a continuous way of how we contribute to our testing society as an avid member of the testing community. So what you see on your screen is an empowered customer. Before we talk about how he become empowered, I would like to really talk about the way we look at the banking and financial services industry today. For now, we do not look at a banking or a financial services industry as banking or trading money. We primarily look at it as trading or banking the data, making the data secure. Now, the person you see on your screen, he's the superhuman Marvel Comics hero who has access to all the latest technologies in the world, and he thinks he has all the power in his hand. It is nobody else but you and me who are utilizing the services of the banks and the financial services sector. Now, what has made this guy so superhuman? The changing trends that we have all seen in terms of the technology trends, the Internet of Things that has happened, the evolution of mobile which is going on, the social media and the reach to the people, the number of people that have access to mobile and access to people, this is all which is making this consumer feeling empowered. If you see at the social networking stats, Facebook itself has like almost 1,500 million users as of now. Twitter has more than 320 million users, so on and so forth. If you go on to Instagram and things which are really helping us do the social media thing, the usage is becoming really, really high. The evolution of mobile has really contributed to it a lot. So how did we achieve this? It's based on the adaptability of this person. And would we continue to be so socially active with the size of the PC? If you think that if the mobile would not have evolved, do you think that we would have been able to really socialize so much? Would we be carrying our PC with ourselves and having 24/7 access? So a lot of things which have happened in the past have really brought things together to make this evolution happen for all of us. Now this end user which we are talking about is a superhuman today, but tomorrow he's going to be more powerful, right? So the tools that he has right now, they were not developed overnight. If you move on to the next screen. Now, what has made this end user's journey, or what has really empowered this person, is the people behind it. And we, again, the people who are the industry experts, the domain experts, the information technologists that work for it, the services industry, which keeps on helping and keeps on growing the power of this person. What generally happens in any word is an idea is created by a person, which a hypothesis is created, which is converted into a product. This product is validated, and then people start using this product. Once the usage becomes more, then the perfection comes to that product, and once you have a perfect product in your hand, you are nobody but a superhuman. If we have to look at the trends of mass adoption, it has been moving in a geometrical progression. It took us 14 years to really use a PC as a mass usage, but it only took us 7 years to go ahead and use the internet across the globe. And it took us only 2 years for almost half of the planet to move on to Facebook accounts. So what all is happening around here? The blockchain, the social media, the crowdfunding, the Internet of Things that we are talking about. If we talk about Bitcoin, Bitcoin was published by Nakamoto in October 2008. It was first of its kind P2P e-cash system. And right now, if you see, it gave way to, in 2011, it gave way to cryptocurrencies. In 2013, it did see some hiccups, but then that was the validation point. If you see the third step of the perfection, it is the validation. So it went through hiccups. People did figure out that, okay, it may not be the thing of the future, but then eventually it perfected itself, and it came out to be a great Bitcoin thing. It came out to be a blockchain and a cryptocurrency for the future. Now, just last year, if you see the usage of the Bitcoin, just last year, Coinbase has launched a first regulated Bitcoin exchange for all of us to go ahead and use. Even in Barclays in UK, they are planning to start accepting Bitcoins. Now, from an evolution perspective, if we look at how we used to do the banking, we used to use the notes and the checks, but last heard in 2016, the Board of UK Payments Council is going to have a meeting this year to understand if the check clearing system has to be continued or discontinued. So that's talking of all of it. What we are talking about is where we are heading towards, like things which were really of usage for us yesterday, they are going to be not used at all, or they'll be really obsolete in the future. How Internet of Things is really empowering us is we have all these small objects which are getting connected to each other, and the consumer behavior is being notified to the marketing people, to everybody else who's using this technology and the data to figure out how the consumer is going to behave and how the patterns are going to look like and how we have to derive our business models. So the industry experts are looking at new business models. The technologists are looking at where the evolution is going towards in terms of technology. And as a services industry, we should keep track of what the domain experts are thinking, what the technologists are thinking, and making sure that we are ahead of the game, understanding what is happening in the market, and create our services and align our services in accordance to them. Now, social media, how this affects really is what Facebook calls its millennials. How the social media helps is primarily on the marketing side of it. It's if you see the hashtags when you buy a new car on Instagram would be like new car or #new house. So these tags are being tracked by Instagram, and they are being promoted to the companies, and they are being actually fed to the databases to understand who's doing what, and within their circle, what is the behavior of the circle, and how do we really focus on gathering more people towards our business. So that's how the whole industry is really getting moving towards the entire evolution. And once we are not ahead of the game, anyways we know we are going to fall. But then this consumer is going to be really powerful tomorrow, and he knows what he's going to use. So better we be ready for it. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, considering that we have an ample amount of public who is probably new to this whole domain, we'll go through the whole banking ecosystem and then the financial services ecosystem, and then we'll talk about where the future of banking and financial services is moving towards. And from there, we'll talk about the technological changes that we have. So if you look at the entire core banking ecosystem, it consists of retail banking, corporate banking, channel banking, investment banking, and private banking. Retail banking is nothing but how do you open your account through the banking system, how is the whole current and saving accounts worked, how the deposits and the loans that we do, how the check clearing and settlement happens, wherein the remittances through the ACH wires and SEPA come into place. Moving on to the corporate way of corporate banking, we have our trade finance guarantees, syndicate loans, securitizations, treasury services, forex, nostro-vostro accounts. Those come into the corporate sector of banking. Channel banking, we are doing banking in via different channels now. Online banking is a day of the past, is the thing of the past now. ATM interface was introduced prior to that with the ATM kiosks. Mobile banking is a thing of current. Now we are also using all the point of sale. Customer care has always been there with the IVR. Branch banking and SMS banking continues to be there. Investment banking, being another pillar of the whole banking system, helps us do the liquidity aggregation, negotiating all the dealing, helping us do the trading and internalization. What private banking helps us with is the wealth management system, how the equities and bonds happen, buying and selling of mutual funds, ETFs, planning for a retirement, tax planning, risk profiling, advisory services, portfolio management, and analytics come into that entire gamut. So this is how the whole banking system is viewed by us as a services industry or as an industry expert. If you go on to the next slide, it will tell us about the financial services sector. Primarily divided into exchanges, which helps us do the trading. Order management system is a part of the exchange trade. We have trading engines that we have to work with, risk management systems, clearing, settlement, market data, pools, messaging protocols that we have to deal with. Investment banking, again, it's the same as we saw in banking domain, but it's a financial services system because we do have non-banking sector people who provide us the banking, investment banking. Brokerage, we deal with the CRM, order management system, collateral, margin management, payout, depository services are being managed by the brokerage. Wealth management system helps us with the equities and bonds. Again, the same thing which we primarily, the banks do. On the wealth management, same financial services sector has the same offerings for wealth management. Has the similar things where we fund management, multiple asset classes are to be looked at, and how do we really create the funds with those multiple asset classes. Alternative investment ways, fund accounting, benchmarking, performance analytics. Those are the primary features of the financial services system that we look at. Moving on to the next slide. Now, we have seen how the banking industry looks like, how the entire trade and finance industry looks like. Where the trend and the future is taking us and how it is really taking us is, there's a lot of innovation which is happening. And this innovation is happening in the form of cashless world. We are getting a cashless world now. We do not really deal with cash anymore. Smarter and faster machines are being made available thanks to the Moore's law that helps us create faster machines and smaller storage devices. We are getting new market platforms which are being innovated for us. Alternative lending is another innovation which is happening. Crowdfunding is another innovation which is happening in terms of creating business models. Now, all this innovation which is happening is not really, it's all deliberate, because we want, there is a pressure to innovate, there is a pressure to excel in the market, so it's all deliberate. And it is not that everything is getting created today, everything is being derived from yesterday, so most of the things are predictable. Now how we have to look at it is how we are working today and what are the trends for tomorrow. So what probable business model would be suitable for tomorrow. So as an industry, we should be looking at the innovation of today, how it will transform tomorrow, and what our strategy to be for the innovation to tackle. The second thing that is actually helping the trend to go in the way it is going is the collaboration. The collaboration is happening between the new entrants, the technologists which are working like banking and the financial sector industry, and the incumbent players, which are the old banks, the financial institutions who are working together now. They are actually collaborating well to create parallel strategies. But now, while they are creating these parallel strategies, there is a role of the financial regulators also which is coming into play. So they are creating the new rules and regulations for the industry to work through it. Now, the third thing which is actually which is working for the whole thing is the innovation is actually always, when you innovate and you collaborate against the system, it is nothing but a disruption. So this disruption is not a one-time event. It has been happening. It has been happening since 1990s, where the first virtual bank was launched. In 2000s, when the first payment system came into place, when Bitcoin was introduced. Why this disruption is happening is because you have a continuous pressure to innovate. Now, the disruption is actually shaping the customer behavior. And what we are not, what we are looking at is not every year we are looking at only the Apple conferences to look at the next big thing. We are probably getting a new thing every week, every day. We get a news on the websites that there are new business models and there are new technologies which are being created. So all of it put together, the innovation, collaboration, and the disruption which is happening in this world is creating the trend and the future of the this banking and financial industry as well. If you go to the next slide. So what we talked about, the innovation, where the innovation is happening and how it is aligning to the exact to the banking and the financial industry is the payments are getting changed. We are looking at payments, the cashless payments. There are mobile wallets which are getting created. There are emerging payment systems which have come up with wireless networks, near field communication. They are all helping to gather the data to understand customer and the businesses, right? So then if you look at the deposits and the lending, there are ways of alternative lending which are happening. It's a P2P online platform which is being provided to the consumers, and legal contracts which are being leveraged to directly match funds between savers and the borrowers. They act as minimum funds, and it's like an online marketing place for the people, for the borrowers and the lenders to come together and start working. Newer business models which are coming up here in terms of is like the alternate adjudication. Borrowers are being accessed beyond the credit scores. They are being looked at, their social data is being looked at. The risk engines which we have created for this deposits lending and the market provisioning are changing every day. So the risk engines are changing every day, and we have to look at how do we really tackle all these changes which are happening in our risk engines, and how do we work towards understanding the behavior of this customer. On the market provisioning, we are seeing a lot of change in the marketing platform. Streamlined infrastructure has come in, and we already discussed about the crowdfunding. On the investment management side, we are seeing social trading which has come in. Social trading it's a real good thing which is happening, where the processes, online investors are relying on the web apps where the web apps actually are gathering all the data together, and the financial content is available via them to understand what would be the trends of the financial market, and this whole social trading is taking a new leap towards that side. Advanced algos are being created. These algorithms are helping us understand the behavior and also create the new, it's actually helping us streamline the spread which is there while we are trading. Now, all these trends and the new things which are happening, they will lead to advanced regulatory models, which we discussed about. There's a lot of data availability because there's a lot of transparency which is there, and a lot of analytical application is happening. Now, with the Bitcoin and the blockchain, there are a lot of decentralized systems which are available with the P2P systems which are being created. So it's not a centralized system that we are going to look at. The regulatory models have to look at the decentralized systems, the behaviors, and how we are going to work in the future. Now, when we are talking about this, there are other things which we have to look at is the secure identity needs. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this again, what we talked about, the payment systems, mobile payments, streamlined payments. Few examples of these payments are how we deal with the mobile wallets which are being created, Apple Pay, Google Pay, mobile-based merchant payment solutions which are there. Integrated billing, if you look at the way Uber works, mobile ordering and payment applications which are there, the integrated mobile shopping apps like Order Need. Then you have streamlined payments, which are like location-based payments. You have a geo-tagging to it. Companies like BPay, Magic Band are working towards it, and then machine-to-machine payment is happening. Now, what it leads to is it's the next generation security it leads to. So Visa, MasterCard, and other companies are looking at biometrics and location-based identification. They are looking at tokenization standards. On the investment management side, as we discussed, the social trading, which is a platform being provided by the web apps for the online users. We have companies like eToro, Zulu Trade, MetaTrade, which are working towards giving us a social trading platform for providing more investment decisions. And these social trading platforms for sure have much better data feed for us to understand and analyze and create our own strategies. On the investment management side and the marketing and trading, because these two things come together, the other thing which is happening is the artificial intelligence and the machine learning. There is a sophisticated way the business is happening on the market side now. Is there are self-learning machines which are available, and the way you do the trading, it learns how you are doing the trading, and then it feeds into its system and it creates its own algorithm for the next event to happen. So what it does is it asks question, discovers it based on the test hypothesis, makes decision automatically based on advanced analytics and extensive data sets which are available for us. So that's where the whole artificial intelligence is coming into play. Now, on the market side, we have this machine accessible data, which is like processes news feeds through algorithms. We have these feeds which come in, which keep on coming, the RSS feeds. And these are fed into the algorithms, and algorithm learns them, and then based on the behavior of a human, they keep interpreting and they create the trends for us. Based on the social media, and there is a event-driven environment which has been created, and based on the sentiment analysis, there are projects which are happening by sentiment, Teradata, which are creating all these machine accessible big data and artificial intelligence supported trading place for us. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Now, we discussed about where exactly the industry is heading towards. We talked about there's a lot of social media intervention, there's a lot of mobile intervention, And all of it put together, the technology also is changing accordingly. What we are primarily looking at is the technology factors which are going to affect the next word work. Predictive analytics is one, where the banks were not really very confident about using the cloud-based technology solutions, but slowly, because we have proved that the cloud-based technology solutions are working, they are moving towards cloud computing and real-time processing. What predictive analytics is helping us is understand the topological analysis. It helps us do more advanced analytics and understand the behavior and patterns and create business models for us. Social media adoption is giving us ways how to do the digital identity, how to create our digital identity patterns. Non-traditional data analysis is being done. And then we are also doing the know your customer through crowdsourcing. So the marketing is taking help from the social media adoption on where our customers are, who our customers are, and what our speech should be. Mobility evolution, we look at the peer-to-peer lending, we look at peer-to-peer payments, we are looking at peer-to-peer networks that are being created. So the mobility evolution is giving us a lot of advantage as well as learning on where we have to move. The first virtual bank, as I told, it was created sometime in 1990s, but now the adoption is too much, and we are not only having one bank which is available, we are having multiple banks which are providing us solutions on the virtual banking platforms. The other thing which is helping us work is service as a platform. Now, open source and business API go together, wherein the business APIs are opened by the third-party developers for all of us to interact with, to integrate with, and understand and create our own solutions. So what it provides is it provides us understanding of how the other party is doing the job and how we have to create our own solution to it. Open source, we talked about encryption technologies that are being created. We are also getting trading open source trading platforms which are being created. Real-time databases are available for us. Blockchains, or the decentralized database that is that has been created is giving us the facility to work with the bitcoins. It gives us cryptocurrencies. Now, Open Gamma is an open source platform which helps us do real-time market risk management analytics. So there are companies who are already working on it. Namecoin is one of those decentralized open source information registration and transfer system. Litecoin is another company which is working towards open source P2P internet currency. So what we are looking at is the small players who are coming up with better solutions for the new age era, and the old players who are open for these solutions, and they are working together to form and strategize the way the whole industry is going to look and feel in the future. Now, moving on to the next slide. Here are a few samples or examples how the industry is, how the whole system is going to look like because of these technological factors and the business models that are being created. If you look at the first part of the screen, the credit cards, how the credit cards are being used right now, and how the whole decentralization is going to change the system. Right now, the customers have their credit cards. The banks or the merchants provide the cards to them. And then these cards are via the payment solutions. There is a payment solution system which provides you the issuer authorization and the other benefits to work on the credit cards. And this is how we are really working right now. But this card will be a virtual thing. And then in the future, the customers will be directly accessing the payment solutions. The bank accounts will be directly giving you the payment solutions. And that's how the whole thing is going to look like. If we see the payment system scenario, the way it works right now, we have a sender. The payment is moving from a sender to a recipient. It could be through a sender, or it could be through a sender bank, or it could be through a broker bank. Now there used to be secure messaging protocols which are still there between the sender bank and the recipient bank, and then we have ACH and the intermediary banks or the clearing houses which help us do this payment systems. So we understand these protocols as of today, but where we are moving ahead with is mobile money, the P2P transfers. The sender is going to have a local account with a peer net, and they'll be able to directly send the money to the recipient. Now, with the introduction of this Bitcoin and the decentralized system, we are having a big ledger, which is an open ledger available for anybody to utilize, and the sender and the recipient are directly connected to each other using this decentralized ledger. What it is actually helping us with is that if there is a slight problem that, okay, why we were going through all this automated clearing houses and secure messaging is because there was a doubt. Right now, what we are moving towards is a decentralized system wherein the sender and the recipient have already dealt with each other. They have done a transaction in the past, and this transaction is sitting in this ledger, and we know that this has been a secure transaction in the past. So based on that pattern, we can assume, and the regulations are going ahead and assuming that, okay, because this recipient and sender have dealt in the past and they have had a relationship in the past which has been secure and confidential, it can continue to grow like that. So that's where we are moving towards the payment system. And for sure, we are going to go away with the secure messaging protocols, not really going to go away with the secure messaging protocols. They will continue to be a part of the technology, but for sure, the intermediary banks and the clearing houses and the way we are doing it right now in terms of the physical availability of these banks, that for sure is going to go away. We can move on to the next slide, please. Now, a few more examples of how the financial institutions work today and how they are going to work tomorrow is, again, we have today the distribution, manufacturing, and risk taking is being done by the primary account institution. But if we look at the future, how the financial institution is going to look like, the distribution is going to be done by the non-traditional players. Manufacturing might be done by the financial institution still, but the risk taking would be done by the investors. So it's going to be a split, and the non-traditional and the traditional players are going to combine together and work towards the future. How the banks work right now is they are directly dealing with the customers. If you look at the investment lending, account, payments, the forex remittance, everything is being done by a traditional full service bank. If you look at the future, it's going to be on a non-traditional network where you will be having alternative lending methods, automated investment methods, alternative payment rails are going to come in, and traditional institutions will continue to be along with new account providers and the old account providers. So that's where we are headed towards in terms of the credit cards or the payment systems or the financial institutions or the banks. Yeah, we can move forward. Now, in the next few slides, we are going to look at what are the challenges and what would be the possible solutions from our side toward as a service industry to cope up with the change to face these things. Now, what you look at is the mobility evolution, blockchain, social media, open source. The whole trend is actually a challenge for the industry. And the challenges which are primarily coming in is with the integrations, the efficiency. Are we having the efficient enough systems to really work on them? The data is really huge with the big data and analytics. We are looking at not like thousands of, we are looking at millions of people together and understanding their trends and figuring out what their behavior is going to look like. The frauds, as we are evolving, the frauds are happening at a numerous pace. We don't know what the other person is thinking about how to crash the system. So what we need to look at is how we have to think about all the possibilities of crashing our own system and making sure that they are robust enough. Accessibility, again, how are we creating our solutions? Are they properly accessible to everybody? Do we have solutions for all the platforms that it is being designed for? Regulations are being changed. Regulations are changing every now and then because of the collaboration. The regulations are changing. The business models have changed. So the regulatory authorities have to act and do the changes to the regulations. So this is another challenge that we have to face and we have to deal with. Now, how as a services industry or a technologist, how adaptable you are to all this regulation and the changes or the challenges which are happening? How do you devise your strategy? How adaptable you are to actually create your strategy, cancel your strategy at any point in time and create a new strategy for yourself? The entire ecosystem is too big, and understanding the entire ecosystem, we have to come up with solutions to understand the entire ecosystem, to understand it, to solve it, and to have solutions for all this entire thing which is happening across the world. Protection, as the frauds are happening, we have to strategize, and the protection is a big challenge for us. We have to understand how to devise our security strategy and provide protection to the end user. Interoperability, because we have so many integrations happening, we have to look at the interoperability and devise our strategy accordingly. As accessibility, we also have usability, which is a big thing in the recent trends. If it's not usable, nobody is going to look at it. So usability is a big challenge, and while the technologies are working towards the solution, they always look at the usability of that solution. How agile you are, how adaptable you are. This is another challenge. If you're not agile enough, you are not going to really continue in this market. There's a lot of inconsistency, and the infrastructure is too huge for all of us to really deal with. So these are few challenges which we are facing, and what you see is the big players which are really bringing all these challenges for us, like the mobile pay, Visa checkout, Visa itself, Bitcoin, Ripple, Litecoin, and these are few industry experts who are working towards this solutions and posing these challenges towards us to solve and come up with our own solutions. We can go to the next slide. Now, those were the overall challenges that we looked at. But while you are doing testing, or when you are actually sitting in a test lab, working on a solution, creating a strategy for a program or a project, these are few day-to-day challenges that come in. Test data management, as we see, while we are working for any of the clients, test data management is a very big challenge. We always find difficulty in setting up the test data for different stages of test life cycle, and how they will be, how this whole test data has to be set up for multiple cycles of testing and multiple years of testing, because banking or finance is not going to, the strategy for the banking and financial scenarios is always to be dealt with the EOD, SOD process, which is not going to happen today. It's going to happen maybe 20 years from now. So there's a lot of challenge in how do we really come up with the whole test data management strategy. The statements and the reports that we deal with, because banking and finance needs a lot of reports. There are a huge number of reports, and we have to validate the accuracy of the data and make sure that whatever reports are being generated are accurate, and the data that is being passed from the backend systems is all working fine or not. So there's another day-to-day challenge that we face while we are testing. Data security, the data sensitivity risks involving the test data. That's another challenge that we face while we are working in any of the testing project. User experience, the digital banking, the usability or the adaptability that, or the accessibility that we were talking about as a challenge. That's another day-to-day challenge while we are working towards the seamless strategy that we are working for. So a seamless transactional experience is required. Omni-channel banking is the next thing which we talked about. So how can we really achieve that? So while we are creating your strategy, you have to look at working towards usability for sure. System integration is, again, you're looking at the interoperability, you're looking at infrastructure, you're looking at integration, you're looking at accessibility. So these are the different challenges that come up together when you are defining your system integration testing. So testing, this involves integration across multiple interfaces and channels. And this is another day-to-day challenge that we face while we are working on on any application or any project. The SOD or the EOD processes, the batch processes that have been happening, they'll continue to happen. The real-time settlements which will continue to happen. What we talked about, the test data management, it's sort of part of it. The date bumping for future dated. So again, it's going to be a test environment setup that we have to look at. So this is another challenge that we come across on a day-to-day cycle. Calculations will continue to be complex. There are complex calculations. There are alpha, beta, gamma, and we have to look at all the theta, all the Greeks of the financial institutions to understand how the product life cycle is, or how the product life cycle should behave. So looking at all these day-to-day challenges, there are some possible solutions which we have worked towards, and in the next slide we'll look at those solutions. Now, as we have been looking at these are the day-to-day challenges, and we have to come up with a solution which would help us in the long term. So as a company, what we have come up with is a test data generation using simulator and automation tools. So whenever we have a problem of test data management, we have a possible solution of creating that test data using our automation tools. Statements and reports. How do you validate the voluminous number of reports and the data that is available for you? We do a thorough user acceptance testing through a dedicated team, which really focuses only on this. So this is one of the strategies that you can think of while you're validating this. Data security. How do we deal with the data encryption? We come up with a strategy of how the data masking patterns should be, the encryption procedures, read them, understand them, what the vulnerability scanners and penetration testing is done for making sure that the data is secure and accessible to all. User experience, as we talked about, the usability, an end-to-end workflow has to be created. You have to have a UI testing team, ensure that the navigation is intuitive and it is complete, and you are not only looking at one channel, which is internet, you are looking at multiple channels. So whatever the solution is providing, you have to understand and make sure that the UI strategy is aligned with that. The system integration, as we were talking about, multiple interfaces, there are channels which we deal with. So we have to come up with a comprehensive system integration test strategy, which will cover an end-to-end workflow. So this is a probable solution which everybody looks at, but the intricacies that you have to look at is that how there will be a number of integrations which will happen, and there will be a possible number of scenarios which will continue to happen. So are you going to validate all of it? No, you're not going to really validate all of it, but there are accelerators which we have created based on the orthogonal array, which help us come up with this whole system integration test suite. A proper test execution plan. You have to have a run plan with you. You have to have a proper execution strategy with you on when the SOD EOD process is going to happen, when the month end is going to happen, when the reports are going to get generated. So while you are working on any strategy for this banking or financial services project, you have to make sure that you have a run plan according to the needs of the products. You have all the products listed, you have all the features of the products listed, and you have all the event-driven scenarios written. And based on those event-driven scenarios, you come up with this whole test execution plan or the strategy. Now, how do you deal with this entire validation of calculations? You have to have a set of SMEs who understand the product well, who have dealt with this industry well enough, and they help you understand these field validations, calculations, and let you create the proper functional test scenarios. So these are few of the day-to-day data challenges, not just data challenges, the testing challenges and solutions that we deal with, and we have created strategies according to them. Moving forward. Now, we have talked pretty much about what the solutions should be, but then while you are devising your strategy, you have to look at a few success factors which we as an industry experts have been able to really derive because we have done good enough work in this sector. we feel that these are the success factors that you should look at while you are devising your test strategy. You have to have a behavior and sentiment driven precondition to create scenarios. What we talked about is the behavioral pattern. We talked about sentiment driven algos that are going to get created. So you have to have an understanding of how these algos are working, how the behavior of the customer is looking like, how the behavior of a customer is going to look like. So you have to have a dedicated team of solution providers and functional experts who can think and create these scenarios for you. So once you have these scenarios, the next thing that you're going to look at is the test data that you have to deal with. So because it's a voluminous data, you have to have some test data accelerators, maybe using your automation tools or the other test data accelerators which are available as an open source in the market. So you have to look at all the test data accelerators which can be made use of while you're devising your test data strategy. Now, new age thought process has to be brought in. You cannot think as a expert of the past that the industry, when the industry is moving towards behavior and sentiment driven, you have to have people who think in the next gen. So having test experts to create your scenarios and the functional experts to create your scenarios for the validations of the product and the way the calculations work, you should also have some new age people in your team to think how the new age is looking at, or how the millennials of the Facebook are working, the patterns, and create your scenarios according to the next gen thought process. You have to be agile. You have to rethink and deliver. No more rule of thumb are really going to work. We already discussed about this. You have to have a test automation think tank, which is not going to look at test automation as a record and playback. They're going to look at test automation of the next era. Now, as an industry expert, what we have achieved, we'll talk about a couple of things that we have to offer. But what we have been looking at is automation not only at application level. We are looking at all the processes which can be automated. Like we talked about the test data accelerators. We are also talking about test scenario generators. We are looking at the test automation to be done prior to when you are actually, so the industry is moving towards the test-driven development. It already did. Now we are looking at behavioral-driven development, and we are creating our test accelerators based on the behavioral-driven development framework. So your test automation think tank, if you have it from the past, you have to train them, you have to make them understand that there is a future, and you have to look at the futuristic approach, and you have to think about the test automation in terms of continuous integration, the builds that are going to happen, and how the deployments are going to happen, and how the whole, because we are moving towards DevOps, so your strategy towards automation should align with DevOps and continuous integration. Now, the success factor, another success factor that you can look at is the need to understand the deployments even before planning, because when you have to be ready with what set of thoughts or what set of strategy you have to come up with, you need to understand when the deployments are happening for your product, or is it in an agile environment, is it in a waterfall? So things like that we already have been doing, but then it continues to be. So you need to understand your deployment strategy of your client even before planning to have your strategy. Now the other success factor that I've listed is open source to open source. Now, as an industry expert, there are people who have really given us the open source solutions. So we also have to use all the resources which are available to us, and as a contributor, we should also give away in terms of understanding and in terms of how our test data accelerators are working. We have to share with the ideas and understand the ideas from the market to utilize all the open source which is available to us. Now, while we are doing all of it, we also have to keep track of residual benefits which are going to happen. Now, when you strategize or when you plan in an agile environment, you don't really think through about the rework that is going to happen or the wastage which is going to happen. So while you are planning your strategy, you always should keep in mind that A process always comes with some kind of wastage, with some kind of rework. But this wastage or the rework which happens never goes in vain. It is always to be reutilized. So you have to always think a wastage or a rework that is happening, how can I really reutilize this, or how I can really benefit out of this work. So let's say if I take an example, if I have to do functional testing, there are applications which are available wherein they can record, they can help us record how it is going to behave in multiple compatibility things. So if you are doing functional testing, why not utilize those resources which will help us also do the compatibility testing and provide the benefits to the customer. So that is something which is like a innovative thought which is there. While you're doing your own functional testing, you're also providing the benefits to the customer by providing the results of a compatibility testing on multiple OS browser versions. So these are a few residual benefits that we are talking about. Now, usage of metrics. In general, what I have seen as a trend in the market, if you're working on an agile project, metrics is only a burn down chart where we understand how much is left to done, how much is left to be done, and how much we are yet to complete. But usage of metrics, from my understanding, we have three types of metrics. One is descriptive, one is predictive, and one is curative. Descriptive metrics is all that you actually collate the data for, which provides you details of the past. If you do not have the details of the past, how will you be able to predict? So the next set of metrics is predictive. Now, when you have this predictive metrics and you get into an instance where you are having a problem, there is where the curative metrics is going to come and help you understand that, yes, we had this problem in the past, this was the prediction, and we can probably get a solution based on the analysis of these metrics. Now, put together, why I mentioned Agile as a part of collating metrics is because if you are not going to have a metric collection, or if you're not going to look at the metrics for while you are actually working on any sort of project which is following any sort of methodology, you are setting up yourself for a failure. So please go ahead, collate your metrics. It could be very minimal metrics which you need just for the project, but then these are required so as to give the benefits to the customer, to showcase your work to the customer, not only to the customer, but for your own processes. It will give you a edge to understand your processes and create them or enhance them. Now, the next success factor that I think of while we are devising our strategy is we think disruptive. If the industry is thinking disruptive, why not we think disruptive? So we create to destroy. We do not create to relish. So if we are talking about that, in any of the automation projects that we were talking about as a residual benefit, that you'll have rework and you'll have wastage. So continue to have that wastage, but derive ways to understand that wastage, how much wastage is going to be there and how much benefit you can really get out of that wastage. So think disruptive, think about how to break your systems from a functional perspective, think about how to break your system from a security breach perspective, think about how you're devising your performance strategies to really make the system fail, and think about a strategy which will really fail the system. And all of it is happening in the test environment, so it's going to help the customer or the consumer have a better product in the production. So that's how you have to think, and you have to create a strategy. Now, the last one, but not the least, the intelligent usage of intelligence, wherein we have created automated test scenario creation. We have accelerators which help you create test scenarios based on the workflows. So always think about automated test scenario creation, because you're looking at behavior-driven development. You're looking at algos or the machine learning or the automated machines which are going to create their own algorithms. So why not we replicate the same patterns, use the same set of use the same set of logic to create our own test scenarios in an automated environment. So these are a few success factors which we thought of putting together and presenting so that we can probably face the challenges and provide better solutions for the next generation problems that are coming in. Next slide, please. Now, when we have looked at all the success factors, it's pretty easy for us to understand what the strategy should be. On the top end of the slide, you see a typical software testing life cycle in a waterfall model, which is requirement identification, analysis, planning, design, execution, defect refixes, and closure activities that we do. But what we are coming to is you have to think about each and every activity while you're actually strategizing for your project. So while you're looking at the requirements, you don't have to really look at the requirements. You also have to understand what the defect life cycle should look like, how your defect management should look like, what your defect prevention techniques should be, how your execution is going to be, what your run plan is going to be. So whatever we have talked through so far in terms of understanding the patterns or understanding the deployments or understanding the test data, while you're creating your strategy, you have to understand we have to keep everything in mind where you are creating your test strategy. Now, while you're doing this whole strategy, while you're strategizing for any program or a project, you have to keep in mind that all sorts of testing have to be in your mind. Maybe you are not going to do them. Maybe they're not part of your contract, but as we talked about, the residual benefits will always help you and your consumer. So as a provider or a service industry expert, you should always think about all the testing types that you can probably provide. So functional testing, test automation, API testing, integration testing, performance, security, globalization, upgrade testing. You have to keep in mind all the testing types while you're creating your strategy. And this strategy is not only for a waterfall model. You can probably create a strategy for an agile model as well. So you have a test agility strategy which is created for agile project, which is not it's not a big document. You just you don't need a big documentation to really strategize for any project. So strategize in terms of what is the current need, what could be the project future need, when do we have to do things, which sprint is going to be for us for the integration, which sprint has to do a proper regression, by when do I have to complete the whole entire automation suite to help the integration fasten, and then the deployments can happen in an easier fashion. So while you're creating a agile strategy also, you have to make sure that you do the entire, you have to sit down, you have to understand it, and you have to make sure that things are falling in place when you are doing it exactly. So think of the future, prepare it for now, and then deliver it. Now, a few very common things which any strategist or a program manager or a project manager does is understand the end goal of the customer. It's understanding the customer. What does he need? It is not just the written requirements that we get. We have to understand the consumer behavior. We have to understand how he's going to behave when he's going to get the product. We have to meet the customer and try to understand what exactly is the business need for having this particular application or a particular product. We talked about strategizing according to the needs of the time of product deployments. We have to identify the testing needs and plan the phases accordingly, and which phase, which kind of testing needs to be done, what tools and technology aspects are to be looked at, how you have to make sure that your strategy is going to align with your execution plan. You have to identify the applicability of all the test accelerators. Plan to create more per need. Now, we talked about all the test accelerators based on test data. You have to create the test data, test scenarios, generation, and things like that. You have to keep thinking thoughtfully and create those accelerators if need be. You have to be adaptable, review the progress at each step, and keep measuring. And that's where the whole metrics thing comes into place. May it be agile, may it be waterfall, you have to have a set of metrics which are applicable for the project and keep reviewing your progress so that you are moving in the right direction. You have to think automation. What we talked about, the think tank for automation has to be refined. You have to think about automating the processes, the methods, the tests, and all the deployments. Keep thinking ahead of business in terms of planning business flows and scenarios. You have to be a team player, work for the product and the benefit of the customer. Sometimes as project managers and and vendors, we start thinking about our clients. We don't think too much about the client. We have to think about the customer and give them more leeway in terms of what they can achieve to build a better relationship for the future. Last but not the least, you have to empower your team. What we were talking about, the next gen solutions will come from your team. They are the next new thought leaders which are evolving. So you have to empower your team. You have to listen to them while you're strategizing and come up with much better solutions based on the brainstorming sessions that you can have with your teams. So that's pretty much on the strategy side. What we think is thinking about all the testing types, thinking about all the phases, and looking at all the possible automation solutions to create a tester strategy for the entire banking and financial industry projects. Moving on to the next slide. So while we were going through the strategies, we have dealt as Gallop Solutions, we have dealt with a lot of banking and financial banking and financial projects. So we have the service offerings that we have is test advisory, functional testing, everything you name it in the testing sector, we have already worked on it. The new big things on the engineering services which we have developed are the DevOps QA, performance engineering. We are doing a lot of big data testing. And what you see on the right hand side is how we have helped the industry. We have increased the productivity by a large number. We have been able to do 70% reduction in the QA effort because we have these accelerators which are in place. So, and we have all these DevOps ready QA processes. So it's a plug and play for us. If you have a problem, we have a solution for it already available with us. Moving on to the next slide. Here are the few test accelerations test suite that we were talking about. We have a requirement testing framework which is available based on different parameters, may it be agile or a waterfall model project. We have a requirement ambiguity testing tool available for us to validate and based on the defect prevention techniques, we can find out defects early in the life cycle with the shift left approach. We have all the test automation accelerators. We have dealt with big companies, so all the SAP and other ERP solutions which are there, and we have automated ERP test accelerators with them as well. We have already created cross-browser test accelerators. We have a web service test creation and execution solution for the industry, which is available, wherein you just have to feed your workflows, and we'll be able to help you with all possible sort of functional test scenarios that you have to work on. Other offerings which have come up recently are the performance test accelerators and the UFT to lean FT migration accelerator. So in a nutshell, we have dealt with most of the problems of this industry, and we are looking at how the industry is going to look like. So the solutions that we have created as part of our problems that we have faced, we have them as an offering from Gallop Solutions, and we would be happy to help the entire community in understanding these accelerators and the solutions that we have. So thank you all for listening to us, and over to you, Shubhendu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sachin. It was a great webinar. I'm sure everyone would have found it very informative. If any, we already have started receiving questions. So if there are, if you have any further questions, you can definitely type in. In the meanwhile, Sachin, if you could just mind answering this question. So I have a question on the payment systems. Here in the UK, we have contactless payments. Where does that feature? I think this was in one of the slides which you were presenting and towards the middle of the presentation. So for contactless payments,
okay,
how does that feature?
So if I understood it correctly, the question is how do we validate the contactless payments, right?
I believe so. I mean, we can answer that question. If there is a different question, I'm sure there would be a follow-up question on that.
Okay. So the contactless payments, what we are talking about is the protocols that have been created for the near field communication. So what we look at is how this whole near field communication protocol works, how the messaging happens, and try to disintegrate and then come up with a solution for that. So every solution is having a challenge. We have to understand the protocols behind them, and we have to make sure that we are aligned to that protocol, we understand that protocol, and come up with a solution for it.
Okay, perfect. All right, Sachin, I think there are 4 other questions, but we are running short. I mean, we have already overshot the time. So all the other questions will definitely ensure that we get the responses from Sachin and we'll send it across to you. So in the meanwhile, if you have any further questions related to this webinar topic or related to Gallop Solutions, related to the services we offer or the accelerators we have, please reach out to us at marketing@gallup.net. I'm sure everyone, if you enjoyed the session, thank you everyone. It was have a great day.
Thank you.